Hey guys, SimCoder here, and today we are going to move on with the information that we got from the user in the previous lesson, and we are going to actually display that information within the user's profile. So this should be a rather quick one, contrasting with the previous lesson. So yeah, it is just a continuation. So yeah, don't forget, if you like these videos, if you like this lesson, please do leave a subscribe and a like so that you don't miss any single video in the future. So yeah, let's get on with it. Alright, so here we are in the development environment, and the first thing that we are going to do in this lesson is to actually fetch the data from the database that we got from the user. So as you can see, we have this information from this specific user, but every single user will have the same structure. We have the banner image URL, the profile image URL, the name and the email for now. So our goal for this lesson is to fetch this information and display it in a cool way, similar to what Twitter does. So the first thing that we are going to do is not to jump into the user service, which is where we are going to actually make the GET request, is to go into the model, the user model, to be more specific. This is because right now we don't have enough variables in here to contain all of the information that we actually have. So we are going to have yet another string, both for the banner image URL, then one for the profile image URL, and finally, we are going to have one for the name, but we can actually add the email as well, even though this isn't going to be displayed. But, well, this is all the information that we have at the moment. Then we are going to populate the user model with every single variable that we have. So in this case, we are going to do this dot banner image URL, this dot profile image URL. Let's make this bigger, collapse that. Okay. Then this dot name. And finally, we are going to have one for the email. Okay, so after you've done all of that, you should have a user model that contains all of this information. So this user model will be specific for each and every single user, and this will help us parse the information and make sure everything is as clean as possible. Now we are able to go into the user service and actually make the request needed in order to fetch the information. But before we make the fetch, we are going to actually parse the information into the user model, as it is the first thing that I like to do, as it makes everything more clear for you guys. So in order to parse the information, we are going to do something that we have already done in the past for the posts.dart, I believe. And if you come in here, we have this post list from snapshot. It just parses the information into a usable model. This is exactly what we are going to do right now, but instead of a list, it is just the user model. And we are going to say underscore user from firebase snapshot, because we are going to receive a document snapshot from the GET request, which we'll make in a second. And let's collapse that. Okay. So in here, we are going to say document snapshot, and we are going to call it snapshot. This is going to be passed over from the GET request function, which we'll write in a second. And this is going to return a ternary conditional operation, because we are going to say that if snapshot, this is the same thing as saying if, but it makes it in a cleaner way. Different from null. Well, if it is different from null, then we are able to actually parse the information. So in that case, we are going to say user model and make sure you auto import everything. ID will be 2.snapshot.id, comma, and we are going to simply write out everything. So in this case, name will be snapshot.data. And in between brackets, we are going to say name, because this is the name that comes from the snapshot. Make sure it matches what you have in your collection, or better yet, document. Okay, and we are going to do the same thing for all the information that we have, all other information that we have. So in this case, the profile image URL, and it has the same name. Then we have the banner image URL, and again, it has the same name. And we are going to add yet another one for the email, even though we are not going to show it at this lesson, but it could be handy in the future. Okay, Now, the cool thing about ternary operations is that we can say 2 points, and if the snapshot is equal to null, this condition will be called. You say null, comma, and semicolon, and there we go. So if the snapshot is equal to null, then simply return null. If not, then return the user model already built. Okay, so now what we are going to do is to actually make the call. This call will be made we'll return the stream because we'll be using provider yet again to pass the information further on into our children widget that we have in our profile widgets. So in this case, it will be stream user model. Then we'll call it get user info. And this user info, what information will it receive from the parameters? Well, we just need the UID, because by knowing the UID, we know that exactly in which position the user will be and which document to get. So in this case, we'll return firebase firestore .instance .collection. And now the collections is simply what we have in our database tree. So users, and then the document will be the document corresponding to the variable UID. And then we say snapshots, parentheses, and we parse the information by using the function map. By using this, everything will be pushed on to the function that we just wrote before, the user from Firebase snapshot, and it will automatically compile it and return the information that we got from it. Okay, add the semicolon at the end, and it will automatically indent everything for you. And I added one S, extra S that shouldn't be there. Okay, so right now there isn't any errors. It fetches the information, it parses into a user model that we can actually use, and we are now ready to use this information in order to display the information in the user profile. Okay, so now in order to do that, we are going to close up our service because we won't be needing it any longer, and we are going to go into our profile.dart. This is where we'll be completing the lesson. This is where we'll do the rest of the lesson, so we won't be messing with any other files. So the first thing that we are going to do is to get an instance of the user service. So user service, auto import it, and then say user service equal to user service. All right? And now we are just using one stream provider, but we'll be needing to use multiple because we are going to use the post service and the user service, two functions from each of those services. So we can do this quite easily by using something called multi-provider. And this is easily attained by doing multi-provider, and everything stays the same. However, we don't just have one value. In this case, we'll have multiple. So we can pick and choose which providers to use by using the tag providers, and it will open up an array, just like we wanted. And we are going to grab what we had before from the post service, and we are going to say that the stream, and not like this, stream provider dot value, and this is exactly like we did before. And we are going to move all the information inside of this function. And by doing this, we get one of the providers that we need. However, we'll need yet another one. So let's just grab that and copy it down below. But in this case, it will be user service, better yet. And we'll say get user info from this UID. As you can remember, we are passing along the current user logged in user's ID, but in the next lessons, we'll abstract this in order to make sure that we can reuse this widget for both users that are currently logged in and other users that the currently logged in user might be viewing. But for now, let's leave it in the simplest form possible. Okay, so now Twitter has a peculiar design which we'll try to emulate to the best of our abilities, not to make it overly complicated, to keep it balanced so we won't go overboard, but we'll try to make it as close as possible. And for that, we'll need to use some widgets that Flutter already has built into its system, so it makes it easy for us to do it. And the most important one which we'll use is the default tab controller. So I'm going to give some space in here because we'll be using this, but at a later stage. And I'm probably, I'm going to actually remove it, just make everything cleaner, and we'll add it later. So we'll use the default tab controller, and this will give us the ability of having that nav bar that Twitter has for the profile with the banner image and some information down below, which we then can scroll and view all the components that come, all of the tweets that the user has made. So in this case, we'll have a child and we'll have a length. So length, and the length will be 2. And inside this child, we'll have a nested scroll view. A nested scroll view because we'll have, again, the header and then the tweets that come down below. And this will automatically give you a header sliver builder, which will give us that look that we are going for. So this might seem a bit complicated right now, but once this starts loading, it will be a lot clearer. So this header sliver builder asks us to give the context of the widget and then simply an underscore because we don't need to pass the information here and we don't care about the information that comes from here. Okay, and in this case, we'll open up curly brackets, and the curly brackets will return the information that we want. So return, open an array because it can pass along, you can pass along an array of widgets, and it will have a sliver app bar, and this sliver app bar can have multiple parameters and you can choose however you want. I'm going to try and keep it as similar to Twitter as possible. Floating, false. We'll set it to pinned, which will be true in order to maintain the information even if we scroll down to the bottom and to make sure that this sliver app bar won't disappear completely. Then we'll set the expanded height. This is the height of the sliver app bar once it is completely open, so when the user is at the top of the page. And then we'll set the flexible space, which in this case will have a flexible space bar. And this will be the banner image. This is where the banner image will live. So in this case, we can set the background, and the background will be the banner image URL. And in order to display an image using Flutter, we say that image.network, because we are making a request to a URL in order to fetch the image. You say provider, and now we get the URL from the provider that we instantiated up top. So provider of, in this case, it will be a user model. Let's give some space there. Okay. Dot banner image URL and integration point in case it doesn't exist or something goes wrong. We simply pass along an empty string. In that case, it won't show anything. Okay, and now we can set the fit to make sure everything is as clean as possible, and this isn't imported, so import it. The fit, which in this case will be box fit.cover. You have a set of parameters, but cover will basically make the image bigger in order to not stretch the image in order to make it fit the container. So this will simply zoom in case the ratio of the images doesn't, the aspect ratio of the images doesn't automatically fit with our flexible spacebar. As easy as that. And in here, this parenthesis goes down below, not here. So like that. And add a comment there, I believe that's the problem. Okay, so now it works. However, it is given an error, which we won't care about at the second. We'll just try to finish this sliver app bar and then worry about that. Okay, so then we are able to add a sliver list, which will contain the information like the profile image URL and the name of the user. And later on, it will have the follow and unfollow button. So in this case, we'll have a comma, then sliver list, open that up, and now we have a delegate. This delegate asks us for a specific widget, which in this case will be sliver child list delegate. And in here, we'll have all of the widgets that we actually want to show. So add an array, open up an array, better yet, and it is a child list delegate, not a child delegate. So like that. And in here, we'll have a container, which in turn will have a padding, and this is more of what we've been doing in the past lessons. So it will be symmetric. Just make sure nothing touches the edges of the screen. Vertical will be 20, and horizontal will be 20 as well. Okay, and now we can actually add the child, which will have the profile image of the user. So child, first of all, column, then it will have children, which the children will have a row. And this is one of the things that I dislike about Flutter somewhat. It is kind of confusing to look at the tree, but once you get the hang of it, it will be easier and easier. So this row will have a main axis alignment because we want to align everything in an horizontal fashion and make sure that that horizontal fashion it has space between the widgets. And we are going to say that the main axis alignment has space between. Okay, and now we can pass along the children of this row. And the children of this row will be as simple as possible. It will be the image URL of the user. And for that, I'm going to actually grab the image that we placed for the banner image because it is basically the same. The only thing that truly changes is that instead of banner image URL, it will be profile image URL. And we are actually also going to set the height because, well, whereas in the banner, it is restrained by the expanded height and the container of the flexible spacebar. In here, it isn't restrained by anything, so we are going to restrain it ourselves. We are going to say that the max height or the height of the image will be 60. That way, everything is standardized between the users, even though they might upload images with different sizes. Okay, and now for the case of this user, the user will be able to edit the profile from their own profile profile page, better yet. Obviously, this is for this specific case. In the next lessons, we'll change this so that it appears to edit the profile if the profile that we are viewing is our own. If not, then display the follow and unfollow button. So in this case, the child will be text edit profile, and on pressed, it will push to the navigator so that we can go to the profile, edit profile screen. Push named, and in this case, we are going to pass along the context and the route name. The route name, if you can remember, is edit. This is the route for our edit profile page. And again, we must open up curly brackets. So open that up with the parentheses before that, and make the onPressed be engulfed by that. And with a semicolon, and there we go. And before carrying on, I'm simply going to go into the body down below and add the list posts so that we can, this error can get out of here and actually we are able to view it. And other thing that we must do is to go up top into the default tab controller and add a length. This length will be the amount of widgets that we have down below. And as you can see, it appears and we have the banner image. And as you can see, we can scroll up and down. We have the edit profile button. We have the image in here. We also have the tweets in here. So now what's left to do is to actually display the name of the user, and then we are basically done. So in order to add this, we are going to go down below, and outside of the row, we are going to add a comment, And we are going to add the name below the user's profile image. So we are going to say align. The alignment of this will be center left, so that it is right below the user's profile image. So alignment dot center left, and outside the comma simply open up a child which will have a container, and we don't need an alignment in here, but we do need a padding, because a padding we'll have to add a padding on the left, just make everything look a bit nicer. So in this case it will be edge insets, symmetric, horizontal 10. Okay, and we are now ready to add the child which will contain the text of the user's name. So in this case we'll say text, and we'll again get the information from the provider. So we can actually come in here and grab these that we use to get the profile image URL, but we are going to use this in order to get the name of the user. And there we go. Now we have like this video, which is actually the name of the user that we get in here, like this video. There we go. However, we want to style this text a bit, because we want to make it bold, stand out a bit, because, well, it is the user's name and it's something that should have an impact. And for this padding, it shouldn't be horizontal, it should be vertical. That way it is aligned with the profile image and it has some space between those. So in this case, we will say style. And now we'll learn how we can style text, and it is actually pretty simple. We simply call up text style, the text style function, and now we are able to call on a number of parameters that we can change and play around with. In this case, we'll just play around with the font weight, which is how bold it is, basically, or thin it is, and the font size. So for the font weight, we are going to say that font weight dot bold. This will make it bolder, yeah, just as expected. And then we have the font size. The font size is how large it is. In this case, I'm going to set it to 25. And there we go. It is really big, but yeah, we can make it a tiny bit smaller. 20 is enough. So let's leave it at that. And there we go. So now we have a profile. We are able to come in here and edit the profile. Everything looks better than before, and we are able to actually have some useful information in here. So it is working nicely. And now one thing that we can also do is to remove this edit button, because right now the user, in order to edit the button, the profile, the user has to go into their own profile. So let's remove it to make it a bit more coherent. And there we go. Right now we have something that looks a bit similar to Twitter. I know that it isn't exactly the same. It needs more design work, but it is what it is. It is pretty similar for the work that we had to put in. It is working. So now we are actually able to display the user's profile information with the banner, with the profile image. Everything is coming together. So in the next lesson, we'll actually do the search for the user so that we can allow the users to follow, unfollow any single user that they want. So yeah, it should be a rather interesting lesson. Thank you all so much for watching. Remember, if you like this lesson, then please do leave a like and subscribe. Yeah, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Ciao!